In this Framer mini course, you will learn the best practices for designing a fully responsive website from scratch. We'll begin by learning how to think about web design layouts in Framer and on the web in general, and then we'll create a so-called style guide to make sure that our website has a consistent visual language so that when we move over to the next step of creating the structure of the website, we have a great base. Then, as a final step, we'll make it look amazing on all device sizes by diving deep into responsiveness. This is Alpha Beta Delta Eagle. What's the issue? Oh, so I should mention, since this is a collection of free lessons taken from my 23+ hour Framer 0 to Hero course, this will be focused on only one section of the whole website. So if you want to learn the full thing and become a Framer hero, check out the link in the description below. Also, whenever you hear me mention resources in the course companion, just know that the same resources will be linked down below as well. Lastly, the working file we'll be using here is also going to be linked down below. Now, if you don't yet have a Framer account, just head to framer.com, sign up, and then either create a new project or click on the working file, again, link down below, and remix that project. Now, with that, we're ready. So let's get started with layout basics in web design and in Framer. In this video, you will learn how to think about designing things on the web. And this is important because to build well-structured websites, we need to have a web-based mental model. I'm going to start by talking about the general logic by diving into the red rectangles on the page you can see here. And then towards the end of the video, we're going to get our hands a little bit dirty and build it out from scratch together. Everything is based on a box. And if you're coming from Figma, you might have already got somewhat of a grasp of this fact because everything we do is basically boxes. But on the web, we treat boxes in a particular way to create structure. So for example, for this nav here, you can see our nav bar for the Paste app, which is a website I'm using here, very nice website. In this example, I've added one box for this whole nav section. And inside of this box, I'm going to fade it out a bit, we have another box that is kind of containing all of the content we have here. This box in the web world would probably have a maximum width so that it doesn't span too long. So the reason that the logo stays here and the button stays here and that they don't go onto the edges is probably because we have another box in here saying that the maximum width is X or Y. The button here itself, this button, is a box, just a stylized box. And the links in here, well, the links themselves could be text elements with an icon. Something like this would probably be contained in a box itself. And then all of these elements here would be contained in another box so that we can structure our content in a nice way. The logo, you guessed it, it would be within a box. And it goes on like that. Now, if we move on to the hero section here, it is the same concept. This outer container section is a box. Then here we could do this in a couple of different ways. But since one of the rules here is we want to use as few boxes as possible for the sake of performance, we could probably remove this outer box here. And then we have this image, which in itself is a box. And we have this bottom part of text fields and a button, which are wrapped in a box. And then each of these are boxes themselves. And as you can see here, this text field is cut off here. So this box, again, probably has some kind of maximum width. This button itself is just styled in a specific way. But the overall concept, the overall thing here is that everything is a box. And then the boxes we manipulate in different ways. We use different settings to structure the content that they hold. Now let's create this whole thing together from scratch. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to create the outermost box. So like the outer container here that we can see that holds everything. I'm not going to be super specific with like specific sizes and things like that. I'm just going to show you this box model concept. So we have the outer box. If we want, we could even go here and double click and just rename it. Let's say container or maybe section. And inside of section, we're going to have another box. So we're going to have the navigation bar that we can see in the top here. So this could maybe then be called navigation. And then inside of the navigation, we have a bunch of different items. So in this case, I would probably, because something I want to do for a whole web page is I want to constrain it when it comes to the width. I want to have a max width for all of the items that we're going to use. So I'm probably going to create an outer box inside of the navigation that is going to be this constrainer. So the constrainer box, this would be something like, what could we call it? Let's just call it container for now. So we have this outer box, the red one that we see here. Then we have a box for the logo type. So another box, this one I would probably call left because it's on the left side. Then we're going to have a box in the middle here that is going to be the center. Whoops. Center. And then on the right side, we have another box that I would call right. So we have left, center, and right. Now, inside of the left box, we're going to have a logo type. So I'm just going to hit T for text and write logo type. Maybe we make it be like bold. Maybe we even draw another box in here like that. And this box, I will just give a color and we will pretend that this is a logo type. The logo type itself, I am actually gonna make into a box. And instead of just hitting F and creating a box like that, I'm just gonna right click and I'm gonna make it into a stack. We're gonna go more into stacks. So don't you worry, we're gonna go into that. No rush at this moment though, because again, it's the box model that is the focus. So I created another box, but a stack box for the logo type there. We can name that logo type. And what the stack does, essentially, in the simplest terms, is that it makes sure that these, like the symbol of the logo and the logo type text, that they are stacked together like this. So that is done. We have the logo type in there. We don't need anything else on our left side, right? We only have the logo type there. Then we have the items in the middle, or the link items. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to hit T for text again and say link 1 like that. Or not replace it, but reposition it. Maybe change to medium for that. And then I'm going to copy that one, paste it, say link 2, copy and paste again, link 3. And then we also had this, we actually had 2 of them that have this arrow. Now, in order for us to not have to create this graphic from scratch, I'm just again gonna create a box like this to show you the logic, and we're gonna give the box a color. So this would be the drop down arrow, and we can close this. I'm gonna select them both and add a stack again. So same logic as with the logo type. So there we have our link with the drop down arrow. Cool. Now you can see that none of these items are centered in here. And to get them centered really easily, I am again going to go to layout here, or we haven't really explored this, but this is the same as making it into a stack from this right click. But I'm going to go to layout, hit plus, and now you can see that it got centered automatically. I know it is kind of magic, and again, we're going to get it more into it later. But as you can see, it's still a box. It has all of the items, but things are just centered inside of the center container there. Then we have the button, right, inside of the right container. So I'm going to hit F and create a button container. Maybe we give it a blue color like this. So there we have our button. Maybe we call this button, and maybe we call this link drop down. The names aren't super cute at this point, but it doesn't really matter at this point. Naming can be pretty good for you if you want to stay very consistent and clear about what everything is on your canvas. But at this point, again, we're just going to go through the basics of the box model. So you don't really have to be that strict. Now I'm creating another text field inside of the button. Let's say just button, placing it in the center, but I could also go to the overall button here and just add layout, and it's going to center it automatically like that. But now we're starting to get our structure going here. You can see we have everything placed in its boxes. So that is cool. I think we have the nav ready at this point. Obviously, it doesn't look as pretty, but this is the basic structure. This is probably exactly how this structure is set up on the paste web page. Just that, again, it looks a bit more pretty. Now, let's move on to these here. So we have an image. So I'm going to create a container for that image. We can call this image container. And another thing here, usually if you have a navigation here, I mean, this would probably in web terms be considered the hero. So the hero itself is going to have a container. So I'm going to create this overarching container that I'm going to call the hero. And then inside of the hero, we have the image container. So now order is restored. This thing here, we can go, let's see, go to fill, image. We could go to Unsplash maybe and just add a random image. So we have the image there. Cool. So this could be the way they've set this up. An alternative way, because we can see here they have three elements, right? They have this iPad, they have this MacBook, and they have this mobile device, an iPhone, I think it's called. So what they might be doing here is they might be having three different images. So one for the MacBook, one for the iPad, one for the iPad like that, and then one for the mobile device here, the so-called iPhone. And then encapsulating these, we would have maybe a container. We could have a container like kind of containing all of these images. Let's go back so it doesn't look as messy, but that's up to you how you want to do that. Now, if we want to do it that way, then I would create another frame inside of here. So this maybe would be the left image, or if we want to be specific, maybe this even says iPad. And we can give this a different color, maybe some opacity like that. So this here will contain the iPad. I guess we could even go in and skip the opacity and just choose, not choose an image, but go to Unsplash and search for, let's see if we search for iPad. I don't think we're going to have mock-ups, but we can get something that just represent an iPad. So there we have the iPad. Then we would have the iPhone here. So let's see, iPhone. Let's take this one. And then this image container is, let's just rename this to iPhone. Something like that. We have the iPad, iPhone, and the image container. This would actually be the MacBook. So I'm going to go into the image settings here. See Mac. Whoa, I am clicking a bunch of things on my keyboard. Let's see here. MacBook. There we go. Something like that. Looks almost as pretty as this one, right? I mean, not really. But again, conceptual. So now we have all of the images here. We could select them and add another frame. And this frame would be the image container. So you kind of see the logic here. Everything on our canvas that is an individual item, an element, gets its own container, basically. Let's move on to the text here. So the text itself would be wrapped in a container that we could call text container. And then we would have a title, so T for text. And this is a title. I could increase the size of it like that. And below it, I'm going to copy and paste another one and drag down the size. Let's say this is some super cool body text that shouldn't be disregarded. And for this one, we could just place it like that. And then we have another button. We could create it from scratch. You can see here that it's actually bigger than the top button. What we could do, we could cheat a bit. We could go into our already created button, copy and paste it in here. And we could increase the size like this. And the same with the button text like that. Now, the magic here is we can take our text container, go to layout again, hit plus, and it gets centered. And we can change the gap in between here. So let's say 24. Isn't this amazingly beautiful, all of this? I mean, this one looks a lot better than the Paste website, I must say. Joking. But yeah, this is essentially it. This is how you create pages on the web. It's not rocket science. It's just boxes upon boxes upon boxes. So with that, congratulations. Now you understand the basics of how to create a website. In fact, you actually just created your first website. So feel proud, feel energized, and let's move on to the next one. With this box model knowledge, you're now ready to dive even deeper into layouts in Framer. And this is really important knowledge to have for the later parts of this mini course, where we will create the base structure of our section. So let's jump into it. In this video, you will learn all the basics of layout settings in Framer. This includes positioning options like sticky, fixed, relative, and absolute, sizing options like fill, fit, fixed, and relative, and of course, frames versus stacks, or as we call them in Figma, auto layouts, and in Webflow, Flexbox. Remember, this will be the basics of these settings, so don't get scared if you don't feel fully confident after this video. We're going to use all of the settings again and again throughout the whole course, so don't worry, you won't leave this course without knowing it like the back of your hand. Now, let's start by looking at frames. I'll hit F on my keyboard and just create a frame inside of here. I'm going to go down here. I'm going to give it a background color so that we can see it better. And close that modal. Now, with frames here, as you can see, we can move it freely inside of here. So This desktop here is currently just what we call a frame. This is also a frame in itself, and as you can see, we can just move it around like this, free flow. If we go to the top, you will see these positioning options, and you will see that it's pinned here to the top. That's why we have this blue indicator. So it's pinned 323 pixels from the top. If I change this to like 24, you will see that it gets pinned 24 pixels from the top. If I enable this and I hit 24 here too, now it's pinned 24 pixels from the right and 24 pixels from the top. So whenever I resize stuff, it's just gonna stick there. Same goes if I start creating frames inside of here. So let's give this maybe dark, light 100. Let's go with that. And I'm gonna create another one and another one. And you can see here, the bottom one is pinned to the bottom, 35. This one is pinned to the top left and the top. So 200 from the top left and the top. And this one is also pinned to the top left and the top. So if I now start changing the size of this, in theory, this should be pinned here and here. This too. And this is only pinned to the bottom, which means that as I drag this towards the left, this should actually just stay in position, while these two should act in accordance to the left side. So let's see. Okay, now something crazy happened here. You can see how they all kind of move in different ways. If we go back to the main frame here, we can see that this little lock icon here is blue. And that's because that's activated now. If I inactivate it, now I can resize it just in the horizontal axis. So if we try again, you can see that this stays put here, while these stay in their position in accordance to this left side. Okay, so now if we start going from the left side instead, what happens then? Okay, then they get pushed on the outside there. If I continue here, it's the same effect, just in the reverse. If we go from the bottom, you can see these are pinned to the top, so they don't really care about me shrinking it like this, while this is pinned to the bottom, so that's gonna stick to the bottom as I resize. If I resize from the top, they're gonna stick to the top because they're pinned to the top. So that's the basics of frames and pins. Now, what if we make this thing into a stack instead? So I'll go to the right sidebar, hit plus on layout, and something happens here. You can see that they all got structured like this. Now we got some other options here. So we have something called gap. So I can increase the gap, and then I increase the gap between these items. I can also use these handles. That is probably a pretty cool workflow. I never use it myself, but you can change it from here and you can change it from here. Now, we also have something called padding here, but since we have fixed on both height and width, when I change the padding, nothing happens. If I change this to be fit instead, so let's go to width, fit. You can see how it now fits the content inside, and the padding remains here. So if I change the padding again, you can see that now the padding works on the horizontal axis. But why doesn't it work in the vertical axis? That is because the height is still fixed. So the height is still determined by this fixed pixel value. If I change this to to fit content as well, you barely saw anything happening. But now, as I change the padding, you can see how it changes in all directions instead. We also have some other options like direction. So if we now change it to horizontal, all our items in here are stacked horizontally. If I change back to vertical, they're stacked vertically. This distribution option here is going to determine where in the box our items are going to be placed. So if we change this to start, nothing happens. If we change it to end, nothing happens. Why is that? Well, right now, since we have fit on all sides and we have a set padding, we can't really use the distribution option in this way. If I take the width, again, set it to fixed and do this. I do the same with the height, set it to fixed and do this. Now you can see that they're placed in the bottom. And in the distribute option, you can see that it's set to end. And this just means that they're distributed in the end right now. So if I change it to start, what will happen? Well, then they're going to go to the top instead. If I change it to center, what is going to happen? They're going to go to the center. Now, the three last options here are a bit different. So space between is going to space the items in a certain way. So if I click here, you can see that it's spacing the items evenly like this, or actually not evenly. It just adds a even space in between the items. Then you have something called space around, where it's going to have an even space around the items. So here. And then evenly is going to space it all evenly like this. Now, the distribute option is based on the direction. So if we change the direction like this, it just changes to horizontally here. But now if we take start, you will see that it places it in the left corner instead. So this is the start. Over here is the end, and here is the center. So if I go end, center, you can see how it changes depending on our direction option. There is another option here called align. This allows us to align our items. Now you can see that we have the direction horizontal and center here. If we take start, it is distributing the items on the horizontal axis. If we use the align here, we can again distribute them vertically. So you can see I can put it in the top, in the bottom, in the center. So we still have the ability to align our items in different corners of the box, for example. It's not just the horizontal axis that we have control over. We can control it both vertically and horizontally. Now, if we jump over to wrap here, and you can see that at the moment, this is set to no. But if we set this to yes, nothing happens. But if I decrease the size of this, and as soon as I reach the padding threshold here, maybe it's easier to see if we reduce the padding. So now it's just 16 in padding. So as soon as we get within 16 pixels of reach here, it's going to wrap the items and throw it into a new row, which kind of gives us this responsive behavior, as you can see. So you could imagine this being cards, for example, in a layout. And if you give the container of the cards a wrap, it's going to wrap the items. So you get this responsive behavior for free. Now, let's go back a bit to our sizing options. We were looking at fit and fixed, but there are two more options. I'm going to resize this a bit, and I'm going to go into this one here. This is currently set to width fixed and height fixed. I'm going to unlock the uniform aspect ratio here. Now, if I set this width here to fill, you can see that this covers the remaining empty space of this container box. These two here are still their fixed widths. So what happens if I go here, unlock this, and change this to fill as well? You can see that they now space evenly. And if I go to this, unlock, and set this to fill, the same thing happens. Now they are all spaced evenly. I can even go into the fill option here, and you can see that it's now one fraction. So this FR here stands for fraction. If I change this to 0.5, you can see that this becomes half the space of one fraction. 0.25, a fourth of this one fraction space. 2, double the fraction space. We also have an option that is called relative. If I change to relative, you can see that we get a percentage value instead. So here I can play with percentages. So I can change the sizes like this. You can see how the percentage changes with it. Now, if we go back to one of these and set this to fixed again, for example, you can see that now with this in fill and this in fixed, you can see how the fill one gets squashed. Now, to use fit, we need content inside our box. So you can see that for these boxes here, we don't have the option to use fit content. And that's because we don't have anything inside of here. So if I add another frame inside of this box and I make this to a layout, because if I check it, you can also just make it into fit content from here, which is gonna make it into an auto layout. So if I hit fit content here, you will see that it now wraps the box inside. If I give this a color, it's easier to see, maybe something lighter like that. And now this box in itself can have its own padding like this. But you can see that the height is still set to fixed. So if I change that to fit, it's now going to be uniform like that. Now let's look a bit at positioning. Absolute lets us pin something anywhere. So if I go here to position absolute, you can see that this is no longer a part of this stack. I mean, it's inside of the stack, but it's not adhering to the stack rules. This is now just floating in space, and this one takes up the full fill width. This one still has its fixed value. If we target this whole box here, go to type and set this to fixed, and we play this, you can see that as I scroll here, it just stays fixed on the screen. And that's exactly what it does. It just fixates your box to this position. So you could imagine like a nav bar, for example, that could use this kind of feature. We also have relative positioning, but again, you can see that that's not an option here right now. It's grayed out. The reason for that is that relative only works when it's a layout. So I have to go in here and click plus. And again, layout here is basically the same as stacks. The reason that we don't call it a stack here is because you also have the grid feature, which we're going to get into in another video. So think of layout as the parent name. Within layout, we have the stack and the grid feature. But now back to the box. If we set this to relative, you can see that it now pushed itself to the top. Now this parent here, this desktop frame, is the one in charge. So you can see that its distribution is set to start. If I change the direction now to horizontal, where do you think it will end up? Probably in the left corner, right? So let's click. Yes, ends up in the left. And if we take end here, where does it end up? In the right. Center. If we change the direction again, nothing happens because it's centered. But now if we go to the start, top, end, bottom, change direction. So relative positioning only works in stacks, and it makes the parent in charge of the positioning. The last option is called sticky. So if we go here and we check, we have something called sticky. If I press this, you can see that we get this top option. This top option is going to allow us to set a specific pixel value or a specific pixel distance to the top from which we want our element to stick. So right now it's going to stick to the top because there is no distance set. So if I take this frame here and I increase this. So if I take this frame here, increase the size, change the distribution to start and the direction to vertical, and we play it, and I scroll, you can see that it's sticking to the top. But as of now, we can't really see a difference from fixed. So if I take this, if I go into this one, into the parent frame again, and I change it to center, and we play, now as we scroll, it's staying. You can see it's not fixed. But as we reach the top here, it stays. So it sticks to the top. If we go back in here and we change this top value to like, say 64, and we play again. Now, as we reach a distance of 64 pixels, it's gonna stick to the top like this. And that's it for the basics. Hey, you've made great progress. Now you're kind of warmed up to Framer. The canvas feels more familiar and you know how to create layouts. But before we jump into actually creating our section layout, there's one more thing. Remember the style guide we talked about? You know, the one that helps us make things look consistent on the web. Well, now it's time to create that style guide so that we have a great base once we start building the structure of the website. A style guide is actually just a collection of colors, typography, and other kinds of styling that makes up your website or that makes up your brand, basically. A style guide could be something that a client we're working with already have, or something we create for a client. It could be something we create ourselves for our own website. There really are no rules. It is just a helper for us to stay consistent with our styling for the website. Now, in our case, when it comes to panda icons, we have an e-commerce brand that sells digital icons. And when I created it, I wanted it to be clean and modern. I wanted it to have like this edgy, cool feel to it with a lot of colors, but still maintain some kind of respectable, not overly eccentric feel to it. So the font I decided to use is a font called Oswald. And if we just Google Oswald, we're probably not going to get it because it's a pretty common name. So Oswald font might be better. And then we'll get to Google Fonts. So this is a free font that you can use for your projects as well. And I think this font has that edgy, cool, but still respectable feel that I'm going after with panda icons. For this website, we'll be using it for main headings and for call to actions. And in web design, usually you will have 6 types of headings, or at least if you look at the SEO tags, you have H1 to H6, and usually you will cover that for your website as well. Well, maybe not if it's a very small website and you only need 3 headings, but in this case, we're going to have 6 of them. So now let's teleport into Framer to get this party going. So first off, I'll create a new page. I will call this page Style Guide, maybe a bunch of numbers with a dash in between. The reason we name it like this is because we don't really want the public to go into this page. This page is going to be for us, for our website, for internal use, basically. Now, with this page created, I can just hit T for text, and I'm gonna say heading 200. This name is just to indicate the pixel size I'm gonna have on this heading. Then I'm gonna head to the text size settings here, and I'm gonna change this to 200. And here, as you can see, we could find Oswald inside of this native Framer fonts panel, and that's because Framer supports Google Fonts natively. Now I am going to copy this and paste it. Gonna do the same here, but this is gonna be 164 in size. I'm gonna rename this to 164 too. Now, before we continue, before you freak out and you're like, how do I even decide my text sizes at this stage? Don't worry. There are a bunch of different type scale tools online that you can use to get the text sizes here. And I've linked resources for this in the course companion. And after heading 164 here, I'm going to continue all the way down to heading 32. So we're going to speed it through. And there they are, our headings. Heading 200, 164, 96, 64, 48, 40, and 32. Now, to complement our headings here, I'm going to use another Google font called Merriweather. And this will be used for the body text. And in this case, I'm going to go for 4 sizes. So let's go here, hit T for text. I'm going to call this body, let's say just body for now. Then we are going to go in here and we're going to search for Merriweather. There we go. Going to call this one body 24, body 20, and body 16, and body 12. Go in and switch the sizes. So 20, this is actually going to be 24. This one will be 16, and this one will be 12. Almost done with the body text. We are also going to have Oswald among the body text elites. So let's take those bodies here. And actually we can just copy and paste these. Put them up here. I'm going to bring those down a little bit like that. Now I'm going to go into all of these. And we're going to change them to be Oswald. And we're going to change the sizes here a little bit. Instead of body 12, we're going to have body 14. So we're going to go here, change that to body 14. And there we have it. Now, before we move on, there are some small tweaks I want to do. First of all, I'm going to make this whole desktop container here into a layout like that. I'm gonna align it to the left. I'm gonna change the height to be fit and like that. That is good. Now what I want to do is to change the text settings a tiny little bit. So for heading 200 here, I am gonna go to the right sidebar. I am going to go to text transform, add it, and we are going to say that it's gonna be uppercase. And as you can see, this will make sure that the text is always uppercase. Then we're going to go to letter here and say minus 0.03. And this will make the letters here be tighter. I'm going to go to line and set 110%. And I'm going to change the weight to semi-bold maybe, or medium, or maybe even bold. I think bold. I'm going to do these small tweaks to the text for all of the text elements that we have here, basically. Now, to save you time, I'm not going to go through it all in this tutorial. I've left the working file with all of these values nicely set up for you in the course companion so that you don't have to do this tedious work. So let's fast forward. Now, while we're fast forwarding, I'm going to take the moment to try to sell stuff. And now you're thinking, I knew it.
It was too good to be true.
But seriously though, if you want to dig even deeper into Framer and have me hold your hand just like this for 23 plus hours while creating a full website with everything from animations to components and the Framer CMS, you can check out my Framer Zero to Hero course in the description below. So there are the text fields. Now, before we round this off, we have to create the colors as well. And if you want to create colors easily, you can go to coolers.co and you can start generating colors inside of here. It's pretty awesome. You can just hit like spacebar while you're in here. You can even remove colors, or you could lock in colors. So if we like this one, but we want to keep generating new ones, I could keep hitting space, and then I can lock this one in and keep hitting space. And you can play around with that until you find a palette that you really like. Now, since I've already created the color palette, I'm not going to do it again in Coolers. I'm going to go back to our little project here. I am going to create a frame inside of here, paste it in here. I'm gonna make sure that it covers the full width. We don't need a fixed height, but that is fine for now. Gonna call this color container. Colors container. And I am going to cheat a little bit. I'm gonna show you how I would create the colors. I'm gonna copy these from my other project over here, but I'm gonna create them from scratch. So I'm gonna create a new frame, and this frame it already has a color, but I'm gonna give it a little bit more of a color like that so we can see it. Now I'm gonna go to this one and see, okay, that is just pure black. So like that, gonna increase the radius a bit so that it's rounded and nice. Then this colors container here, I'm gonna make into a layout like that. I'm gonna align it to the top like this. And we're gonna create the different colors here. So maybe we name this color, and I'm gonna copy and paste. So there we have the other color. Now what is that? That is black again, but 75% instead. Gonna do it again, but this time 50%. Then copy paste again, 25%. Again, 20%. Again, 10%. And again, 5%. And one last time, 3%. So those are all our different shades of black. I guess they become gray, kind of. Now I'll do the same for white as well. I'm just gonna copy this one, and maybe we actually do this. I'm gonna select all of these, since these can be considered one family. So these will be one stack. I mean, it can just be named stack. But inside of this little container, I'm gonna tell them to wrap. So this one ends up below, and this one, like I said, is gonna be white. I'm gonna give it a border so that we can see that it's white. It's gonna be 100%. So that's our white. Then we have another one that is a white with a 50% opacity. So 50% opacity of our whites. And just for quick context, the reason I'm adding all of these different shades and stuff is because on a website, you usually want to work with different shades of things. You don't want it to be just black and white. You want to have like subtle grays and things that just make things look a bit better, to be honest. And it's also something that you will see on most websites in a lot of UI design projects. You're working with a lot of different grays. So it's a standard. It helps you create a website that has more layers to it. I am going to wrap these white ones into a stack as well, like that. And I guess we can just copy this stack, and we can say actually that the direction is vertical instead of just wrapping. And for this one, I'm going to remove that. And we can see that this one is going to be fill. We are going to put it to be start in distribution. I am going to select that color itself, go to the border, And then I am going to cheat a bit. I'm gonna use the color picker and just pick these colors here. So I'm gonna pick the different colors that we have. Boom. And boom. And boom. Now with that done, I'm gonna go back to this colors container. I'm gonna click this little icon here and make sure that it's fit content. Basically, I just don't want it to span all the way down like this because it doesn't look aesthetic. I'm gonna remove these accent colors. And for these colors here, and I guess for all of the colors, for all of this, essentially, I have included it all in the course companion. So you can steal it. Thank me later. Now, the last step here, to make this into an actual style guide within Framer, we need to make these things into styles. And for that, I actually have another video that I created. I then created this video in hindsight because I realized I need to add some context. But now we're gonna cut to that other video. So see you in the other video. So now we can see that we have all of our text styles here. If we go back to our work file, just to see that we're doing it in the right sequence, we're gonna start by applying all desktop text styles. So I'm gonna go back here to the style guide and I'm gonna select my heading 200 and then we can go to assets here. And you will see that I've already, actually this body text here, we can delete, but I've already created some color styles. And these are the color styles I'm using just for, again, I'm gonna go jump between back and forth here. But here you can see that I am using, if I select this, I'm using color styles for the course cards here. And the reason I'm doing that is because it's much more scalable. And you're gonna see how your websites become really scalable when you start utilizing style guides and color styles and text styles and even components. As you can see here, I've even created a check component here that I can check and uncheck. All of these things we're gonna cover and you're gonna see how they can make your project super scalable. But that was a tangent. Let's just see here. Okay, we're gonna apply all desktop styles. So I'm going in here, I'm going to assets, and under styles, we can see that we currently don't have any text styles. We only have the colors. So I'm gonna go to text styles, click here, and go to heading 1. Now we created a heading 1 text style. This is one way to do it. The other way is to click on this text style here, go here to styles, and click new style, and then heading 1. The good thing about doing it this way is that we don't have to redefine the text style. So now we have this heading 1 here, and it is already defined, as you can see here. So everything is filled in. We have the letter spacing, the line heights, and everything. And if you want to change these things, which I do sometimes, because in some cases, my Figma styles aren't super optimized maybe, and then I will tweak it inside of Framer. So then you can just go in here in the settings and you can see that it changes in real time, even letter spacing like this, sizing. But that's the first heading. Second one, we would do the same. I would select this one, go to styles, new style, heading 2. Third one, new style, heading 3. Fourth one, new style, heading 4, heading 5, and heading 6. And if you then have more headings, you can go and do heading 6 again, and it's automatically going to become heading 6B. You could rename this if you want to, but let's go with heading 6B for now. Then we're going to go and do the same for the body. So new style, paragraph in this case, plus paragraph. We have our biggest body text, but now the body is just going to be called body for every new body text that we add. So I'm going to go to edit here, And actually, I'm not going to go to edit. I'm going to right click this instead and say rename. This one can be body XL. And then the next one that we add, let's go back to styles, new style, paragraph. This one can be body, sorry, I always do that. Rename, right click, rename, LG. Then we have the next one. And now from here, you could either do it from this panel. The cool thing with this panel is that you can change the position of your text styles. So if you have if you want to have a nice hierarchy here, then this is nice for changing the positioning of the text styles. But generally, just using this panel here to the right is what I do. So paragraph, body 16, 14. I'll just add these like this. Paragraph, 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 and paragraph. And now we can go in here instead and see 12 is the smallest, 16, 20, 14 in between there, I think. We'll see if that's the correct one. And let's see, 24, I think this is that one, and 16. Let's see if this is correct. So if we click in here, body XL, Oswald. So what I want to do here is I want to have my Oswald headings in the top. So I'm just going to make sure that these are all Oswald. Yes. Oswald. And then this should be Merriweather, this body 3 here. Yes, good. Just going to rename this. Sorry, rename this body MD. I can click here. This is the biggest Merriweather. So let's call this body XL, Mary. Then we have body LG, Mary. Then we have another Oswald. So this one I will move up. I'm going to rename that. Let's see, body SM. Let's see, Merriweather. Rename body MD, Mary. And the last one, 12. Body SM, Mary. And there we have all of our text styles. Even more progress. We've got text styles, but there's a problem. They currently only work on desktop. So in the next part of the mini course, we'll make them work for every device. In this video, we will make our text styles responsive. And how we do that is pretty simple. We just click back into our text styles. We go to the right sidebar here. I'll click on this, heading 1, then edit. And once we're inside of here, you will see here under breakpoints that we have a type setting. If we click here on add breakpoints, Framer is automatically gonna add breakpoints for us. Tim, the captain speaking. As mentioned in a previous video, you can dive really deep into the science of creating type scales if you want to. So I've linked a resource in the course companion for that. Now let's continue. Now there are different ways for you to calculate what sizes your breakpoints should be, but what I usually do, just because it's easier, is I will go based on my hierarchy here. So for heading 1, that is 200 in size. For the large version, it's 200. Then for the medium version, I would do what my heading 2 is in size. So I would do 164. And for the small version, we're going to do 96. As I said, this is just my personal way of doing it. You can do it in whatever way you want to. Maybe you have already defined your text styles inside of Figma, or you have another way. But this is quite simple and fast. So I'm going to go to this one, heading 2. Edit, add breakpoints. Large is 164. Let's see, so 164, then 96, 96, then 64. for the small one. Then we go back, heading 3. So this one. Go to heading 3, edit this one. Go to add breakpoints. We have large, which is 96. Then medium, 64. Small, 48. Then I would just do this for all of the styles. So now, when this method changes, at least for me, is when I get down to sizes that are very small. So in this case, for body XL, when you add your breakpoints here, in this case, I would probably go for something different than 24 and let's see here, then 20 and 16. Let's actually go to the Panda Icon site and see what we did here. So we have body 24 here. Body XL, large is 24, 20, 16. Okay, so for this one, I am actually talking out of my butt. But if we go to body 20 instead, let's check it. Large is 20, medium is 18, and then small is 16. And as you can see, we don't have an 18 size here. For body 16 or body medium, if I go here and I check large, medium, and small are all the same. So when we go to smaller sizes, this technique or this structure that I'm using kind of falls apart. Tim, the captain speaking again. Now, the reason it falls apart here is because we want to still maintain a hierarchy for our text fields. So body small should be smaller than body medium. Body medium should be smaller than body large, but we don't want either of them to become too small. So what I usually do, and this is me personally, is I set anything that is at 18 pixels or below, I set it to stay at the same size for all devices. So 18 pixels is 18 pixels for desktop, tablet, and mobile. 16 pixels is 16 pixels for desktop, tablet, and mobile. 14 pixels is, you guessed it, 14 pixels for desktop, tablet, and mobile, etc. This is not an official way of doing it. It's kind of a shortcut, but it works in most cases and is a bit easier to handle. Now, let's continue with the video. So here, for this one, it could work. We will say 20 and then 16. But here, for body 20, it changes. So we add breakpoints. Medium will be 18. Small will be 16. Body 16, or body medium. A lot of different names here. Body medium, large, 16. Medium, 16. Small, 16. So it stays the same. Same for this one. Body small, add breakpoints, 14, 14, and 14. Then we go to this one. This has the same scale as my other XL one. Let's see, 20 and then 16. Then we have this one, 20, 18, and then 16. Medium, 16, 16, 16. And the smallest one, breakpoints, 12, 12, and 12. And now we should have all of them applied. So let's see what happens if I go to the plus here and I click tablet. We can see here that, first of all, we have a problem with the layout setup. If we align to the left instead, we can now see all of it. But we can see that it's decreasing in size. So that's good. It's working as we want. Let's see if it works for mobile. Boom. It works for mobile as well. So this is a good way for you to set it up to see how your type scale structure is going to work across devices. Now, the last thing we want to do though is to make sure that our sizes or our text styles are actually responsive at the right breakpoints. Hey, it's Tim the Captain doing a cameo. So when it comes to choosing the right min and max widths, guess what? There is no right or wrong. It all depends on what you think looks best for your layout. What matters is that you, one, make sure your min widths for your text breakpoints correspond to the device sizes you have on your canvas. So that's number one. Number two is that the width of your text fields, in the case that you choose to have a really wide min width, doesn't span wider than 600 pixels. I included a YouTube video where I talk about this specific point about text widths in the course companion. So check that out if you want to dive deeper into the reasoning behind that. Now, let's continue. For the website that I created and that we're going to create together, 1200 is not the minimum width I want for large, and 810 is not the minimum width I want for medium. So we will have to change these for each and every style that we have. So for large, for example, I want this to be 960. And the reason it says min width here is because this is going to apply when the device has a minimum width of 960 pixels. So for medium, this is going to be applied for the device when it has a minimum width of 560 pixels. For small, it's everything from 560 to 0. And we're going to get more into the responsive behavior. We're going to get a lot more into the responsive behavior in later videos. But what we want to do now with the text style is just to change these settings for all of our text styles. So I will have to jump in here and do this for each and every one. Hey, it's me again. And this time I'm not going to sell you anything. I just want to say that you're doing awesome. Keep pushing through until the end of the mini course, and your future self and your future web designer self will thank you. So now with that done, we've changed all of these to 960 and 560, large 960 and medium 560. And now with this done, I am going to change the size of this to 560, and the phone version can be at, let's see, what do we have for this project? 320. So we do 320 here too. And these are the sizes that we're going to have for the different breakpoints. Okay, text styles checked off. Now to round off our style guide, we just have to create color styles. And this one is going to be really quick and super helpful if you want to have a truly professional workflow inside of Framer, and a fast one at that, because it really helps with the speed. So check it out. In this video, you will learn the easiest way to set up your color styles. And in the previous one, we applied all our desktop text styles and all our responsive text styles. So again, now it's time to create the color styles. So I'm gonna jump over to the style guide page again. The first thing we want to do is to just select one of the colors. So I'll take the first one here, the black, and here instead, we go to the fill option. I click here, and inside of this fill modal, we can start creating our magic. The way to create our magic is by going to this plus here. So I can go and click plus, and now we're creating a new color style based on the color here that we've selected. So for this one, we can call it black. I'm just gonna create this. Say black. We can move it up here if we want to, because all of these colors are the ones I created just for the course lesson again. So we have black, then we also have black 75% here. So I'm gonna go to the plus. So I just switched over to this one, just click that one. So you can do it like this, and it's gonna be much quicker. Switch between them while the modal is open. Switch to color 75. black 75. Click plus, black 75. Create, drag it up here. Switch over to this one. Let's see, plus, black 50. Do the same here. Drag it up. Click plus, black 25. Drag it up. And then I'll just do this for all the colors. But before I do that, I'm going to go to this auto layout, or stack as we call it inside of Framer. I'm going to change the width here from fit to fill. And from here, we're going to have a wrap property so that the colors wrap, so I can see all the colors. Let's see, are all the colors present? Yes. But this color here, why do we have two of them? Let's see, this one is white 50. Okay, I see. So maybe for these ones, we're just going to create a border so that we can see them. And that should be good. So let's continue. We have black 25. We have black 20. So plus again, black 20. Create. Drag it up here. Oh, sorry. We don't have to do black 5 twice. We have to switch to the new one. Go back up here. Plus black 3. Then we have white 100. And just for consistency, we can go back to our black here. And when you go back to a color, like here, just make sure that you select the new one so that you don't go here and click black now, because then you're going to make the color you've selected into that one. So I'll first go to the color that we're going to change. So we have the black one. I'm going to edit this and say black 100. Or maybe we even call this dark 100, which makes it a bit more maybe scalable, because then it doesn't have to be black. It could be some other color, but it's a dark color. So dark 50, dark 25, dark 20, sorry, dark 10, dark 5, and dark 3. And yeah, again, this is totally up to you how you want to name your things. And I'll click on dark 100 here again so that we get the original color back. And we go back to white. Maybe we change this to light 100. And then we're going to create, we're going to select this one. We're going to create another one called light 50. And drag that one up. Now let's jump over to these ones. This one we can call teal. Like that. Then we have this one. What do we call this one? Orange. Sorry for my poor color naming. Purple. Purple. And red. And there we have all of our colors. Now, one other thing I would want to do with my colors is to make sure that they are applied to our text styles. And the way to do that is to go back into our text styles and click here, heading 1, edit. And inside of here, you can see that we have a color option as well. So for this one, I'm going to set it to be dark 100. Heading 2, edit, dark 100 again. Do the same for this. Dark 100. Dark 100. So basically for all the headings, setting dark 100. For this body text, I will actually go and check out my previous project here because I don't remember what exact colors we had. So for the body XL, let's see, is it black 75? And as you can see here, I'm using black instead of dark. So this is, again, very much up to you. What mood are you in today? How do you want to do this? Black 75, which would be in this project. Let's see, dark 75. And if we check this one, I think it's the same. Dark 75. How about this one? Dark 75. Dark 75. Let's see, dark 75. So every one of these bodies, except the last one, which seems a bit more faded out, 50. Okay, so let's say that one is 75. This one is going to be 75. And just so we don't forget, maybe take the smallest one first here. This is going to be dark 50. Then we can continue with the other ones. Dark 75. Dark 75. Sorry, this is repetitive. 75. And 75. And the last little puzzle piece, 75. So there we have our color styles also applied to our text styles, which is going to be quite nice because now we're going to make sure that everything stays consistent throughout the site as we build it. Now, there is one style that I didn't quite cover. That is the link styles. So if we go to our assets here, you can see that we have our text styles set up. It's looking nice. We have our color styles set up. It's looking nice too. But we didn't set up a link style. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to click here, set up a link style. It was created here. So if we click on this under links, you can see that we have 3 color options. Now, again, we're going to be a bit of a cheating little sneaky fella here. And we're going to go into my previous project. And we're going to see what I have been using. So if I click link, you can see that the default color we're using here is black or dark. So the link, when nothing is happening to the link, it's going to be black or dark. Then as we hover over it, it's going to be faded out. So dark 50 or black 50. And when it's the current color or the current link, if it's in a nav bar, for example, then we don't actually have any difference. So it's just going to stay black. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to change this one to dark 100 and then change the hover to, what was it, 50, I think, dark 50. And then as a nice little thing, a nice little touch, we can go into transition, click add tween, and we get this ease in out animation to our links. We can also add decoration to it. So by default, it's going to have an underline or a strike through. And then on hover, it's going to have an underline or a strike through. For me, I think nothing, just a color change. Might not be the most accessible option, but at least it looks amazing, right? We have to think about the aesthetics as well. Current, I'm just going to remove. And decoration, just maybe current, we could have an underline, but you know what? For now, we're not going to care about that. Finally, it's time to set up the structure of the website. And by the end of this part of the mini course, you'll have something like this. Now, let's continue. So in this video, we're going to start creating the header or the hero section. So let's go back to the Figma file and let's check out this hero. So we have this big text. We have some 3D assets. We have this little body text here and then a button. Now, let's quickly also go to the actual website that I created just to check out what happens. So as you can see, these things here kind of slide up, like these things, aka the text. I'm gonna replay it. It slides up. How we make it slide up like this is because the text fields, so the top field and the bottom field, are wrapped into their own boxes. So let's watch it again. This text comes up out of a box that is hiding it, and this is doing the same thing. And in the Figma file, I just have the text fields like this. So that's going to be a difference, something that we do differently. Now I'm going to create a frame here again. Frames upon frames, as we usually do here in this little tool. Gonna give it dark 5 so we can see where we're working. We can call it hero, like that. Okay, so the first thing is next level, the text. So let's write next level, bump it up in size. And as you probably can see here, this size is a lot bigger than our biggest style, our biggest text style that we added. And the reason I didn't add this specific style is because it is dynamic. It resizes based, you can see that it like resizes exactly based on the device width. So with some like with our other text, it will resize on specific breakpoints like this. But with this text, it goes along with the screen like this. So it fits the screen. And when it fits the screen like that, we can't have a defined text size. We have to set a different value that we'll get into in a little bit. But let's just write the text for now like this, and I'm gonna add a frame around this. Let's say top, and I'm gonna do like, maybe we decrease the size a little bit. Maybe something like this for now. And I'm gonna do this, I'm just gonna duplicate this by holding down Shift and Option. And I think 3D assets, yes, is what we say. 3D assets. Let's go to these text fields and decrease the letter spacing a bit, just so that we can see all the letters. Top, this bottom one should be called bottom or bot. So we have those text fields. What else do we have? We have the images, okay? So let's create a frame here. So again, coming back to the boxes upon boxes thing. The image is just a box, right? So we're gonna go to this, choose an image. What did we have? I always forget. I might be becoming a bit senile, but this is gonna be a car. What car do we want? Let's do car blue. It's not the same one, but this one will work too. So a car there. Let's see what size we have. 350. So it's gonna be a bit bigger too. Maybe 350 might be too big here. Let's say 240. So again, 4 points, grid system based. And this is going to be image like that. Going to duplicate it. And while I'm dragging here, I'm holding down spacebar, as you can see down here. And when I do that, so I start dragging and then I hold down space, because otherwise, if I don't do that, this might end up being nested or going outside of things. So I want to hold down space so I just keep this in the same layer that I want. So let's do this. Let's see. Yeah, here we have this tilt, and this is going to be a bike. So let's see, bike, like that. And we have a feather. So copy paste and drag it here. Feather. Where are you at? Where are you at? I don't have the feather in here. Maybe I decided not to include the feather. So we can take something else. Let's take a brush. We have the brush. Looks cool. Okay, so we have, and this is easy to change, so we can switch between different assets. I usually get tired with assets, so I will just switch it midway through a project anyways. Okay, so what else? We have the assets. We're gonna have a text field here. Not this big though. Let's say text, and we decrease the size like that. 20. This is 20 Merriweather, so we might as well go to our styles and look for 20 Merry, body large. And I'm gonna copy this text, paste it in like that. What else do we have? We have this button. So let's increase the height a little bit here. Drag this up. And maybe we increase the width a little bit for now. Put this a bit higher. Gonna create another frame here for the button. I'm gonna call it button. And inside of the button, we have some text that says something. What does it say? It says explore categories. Explore categories. And I'm going to go to styles. Before I do that, I need to check what it is. 20, Oswald. Okay, 20, so body large. Again, going to go to color here to make sure it's dark 100. In here, we're going to have a little pulse asset. You can see here, if I zoom in, it's pulsing like that. And that is going to be a component in itself. So for now, we're just going to keep it as a container, I think. Let's see. What size? 20. So 20. Gonna make this into a layout like that. Let's see, what gap do we have? 12. Okay, I guessed right for once. That was a nice thing for a change. Border. We're gonna have a border of 5, I think. Let's see. Button. Stroke 5%. Yes. What? 20 in radius. Not padding. Radius 20. That looks a bit too rounded though, because it's not high enough. So let's see here. Let's first put them to be fit content like this. Then let's check 34, 34, and 56 on the sides. 56, okay. So let's say 56 and then do 34 top, 34 top, 32. You see, my muscle memory even goes for 4-point grid. Should we stick with that, or should we have a fixed height? Usually what I do is a fixed height, and I think 34 was possibly to get it to be 88, which is 4-point grid. So instead of having to dabble with the height paddings, what I will do is use a fixed height instead to make sure it sticks, adheres to the 4-point grid always. It's just easier to read too. You will see, okay, it's 88 in height instead of like 34, 34. Okay, good. I will, let's see, I will remove this background. And we will now go into the text settings here. Let's see if we take the first one. Let's say 324, just for consistency here. So I'm gonna increase the size to 324, and then I'm gonna change to us. Maybe we even do this to get it for free. So I choose heading 1 first, and then we just remove it and we increase the size a bit. 216, maybe we want even more. And right now you can see how like the text pushes out of these boxes. It's getting messy. So what I would do here instead is to go to each box. So this one, I will go and set it to layout and fit content. So now it fits all of the text inside. Fit content everywhere. So now we can place them like this. We can take this, let's see, the whole button we can push down a bit. Let's push this, push this down as well. Push this up a bit. Let's push the text down. Okay. Let's see. What we're also gonna do is we're gonna go and check our website here. I'm gonna just see what I actually did. So I have a text container containing these because, I mean, on one hand, it adds more containers. On the other hand, it gives me more control over these text clipper items. Another reason I do that is because when we make this responsive later, I want these images to be adhering to this box. So I want it all to be based on the same parent element, because if they are outside of this box, their parent is going to be the hero section. So when we make it super wide, these images are going to span out into the sides. So if you have a very wide screen, they're going to be in like the edges of the screen if you don't pin it correctly. So it's easier to wrap it all into this container. So let's do that. I'm going to take these both and add a stack. Call this, it's going to include the images as well. So maybe text container isn't the right word. Let's just call it wrapper for now. Let's make it identityless. Identityless. I'm going to put these images inside of here, and you can see that now it really goes bananas. So what I will do is I will go not to the wrapper, but I will go to these images, target or select them all, and change their position from relative to absolute, so that they are no longer part of the flow. And let's see, this one was here. This one, I will hit Option V, Option H, which will place it first vertically. So it's these options, V, H, vertically, and then horizontally. Oh, and then I will reposition it like this. Oh, this was here actually. And this one goes up here. That is better, but this whole wrapper is clipping content right now. So the overflow is set to hidden. I do not want that. It has a little bit of a gap, 10, which we don't want either, but it's still too much distance between these. So we have a couple of options, and again, I'm just going to remove the gap from here because I don't want any gap in these. We have a couple of options here, I guess. Since we want these to be closer, but they are inside of a stack, and there is no ability right now to do minus gaps, like minus values, we will need to be a bit creative here. And what we can do in this case actually is to make these text fields themselves either into absolute positioned items. This will allow us to, so I will give you an example. I could make this position absolute, and then I can place it further down, so it's like right by the edge here. I could do the same with this. Let's see, position absolute, and place it like in the top here, so it's right by the edge there as well. That is one way, but I don't think that was the way I was using here though. Let's see. So the text, nope, is still relative. So what I did here instead is what we see here. I was using a smaller line height for the text. So if we do Command C and Command C, back to relative can do that as well. As you can see here, the line height is currently 110. So if I drag that down to 95 instead, the whole box changes its size. If I do the same here, down to 95, sorry, I need to select the text, down to 95, it all of a sudden looks much better. Let's see, are we having the same text size? No, we don't. This says 100%. What the hedge is that? Let me explain to you what that is. That is what gives us the ability to have the text scale, like I showed you. So instead of having a specific size here, which makes it impossible to have it scale in that way, I'm going to set it to be 100%. So now this next level thing is 100%, but the container is very small right now. So the text becomes tiny. So what we'll have to do is to set this to fill, and we're back. We're back in the game. And I'm going to do the same for this. So we're going to set this to be 100%. And we're going to take the bottom container, set it to fill. And we're back in the game. But as you can see here now, these both fill up the full width, which is nice in some cases. But in this case, I want the text to be the same size, or I want it to look as it's the same size at least. And a little hack to do that is to just go to your text here and add a little bit of spacing. So add a space in the front and a space in the back. And all of a sudden we have text that looks more similar in size. Now it's not exactly the same size, but it looks better at least. Let's see if we can make it a bit tighter maybe. What are we, sorry, here. What are we using? Minus 0.5. So now it looks better. And I think we can even increase the size of these actually. Let's say 320. 320. And this is also something we might change throughout, but let's do 320 for now. 320, 320, 320. Okay, good. Why is this? Yes, because this has, no, this doesn't have a background. So the hero here is clipping content. And we actually want this hero to clip content. So I'm not going to change that, but I am going to make this into a stack. I always want to say auto layout because I'm so used to Figma, but it's going to be a stack. I'm going to give it some gap. I'm going to give it a height of fit content for now. And we're also going to give it a max height, or maybe even a min height, let's see, of 100 VH. And VH is just a way for you to specify or to say to a section in this case, you're saying to the section, I want you to take up the full viewport height. So 100 is the full viewport height. So if you take my website here, for example, and we play it, this section takes up exactly one full height of my screen. So regardless of your screen size, it's going to take up this whole screen size. So I have this on max in this. I don't know if I use max or min in this case. Let's see. Height, I actually just use 100 VH in height. So let's not complicate it, and let's make it always 100 VH in height. So now we have that. We have the images here. We have the text. How is the... Oh, sorry, I'm jumping between windows here. So 32, 32. So the distance we have is 32, in other words. Okay. I'm going to place this a bit like this. I'm going to put this Figma window here because I want to check out our real website instead. Okay, so obviously we have different assets and they're placed differently, but it doesn't really matter. You can place them however you want. So let's go with this placement for now. If you want to, you can place them like this as well. In the end, it's not going to matter. Something I see as a difference is that I'm using a dark color on this text here for the hero. What else? This text seems to be bigger in here. So maybe I didn't fully follow the Figma file in this case. Let's play and see. Again, though, that is easy to change. So if we want, we could have this be body XL instead, if we like that more. This frame is going to be pulse, but I'm just going to call it pulse for now. And I'm going to give it a little dark background like that. What else are we missing? Are we missing something else? No, I think we have most things right now. Obviously, there are a bunch of components and effects again, but we're going to get to that later. But other than that, let's see. This width is going to be fill in the end. So let's actually take this moment to make this whole desktop into a layout. So I'm going to hit plus here and nothing happens right now. But the cool thing when we do this is that now I can switch my sections really easily like this. Just select one and then throw them around. And that is pretty cool. I think that helps your workflow, makes it faster. So I always do that when I create websites in Framer. And now automatically this hero section was set to fill. So let's see what it looks like now when we decrease the size. It's not really working, right? So we have to go in here and check what's the issue. So the wrapper here seems to be set to fixed values. So it's just gonna stay fixed. It has set its mind to be fixed, but we're gonna change its mind and we're gonna make it fill instead. And we can even make it fit content height-wise. No, we cannot do that. I take it back because if we do that, I mean, we can do it. But you could see how these images then became, or actually, I might be talking out of my butt again. Let's change it to fit. The only thing that happened here, I think, is that the size changed. And since these are pinned to different places on the screen, when the size changes, they're gonna change position because the size increases and this is gonna go higher, this is gonna go lower because it's pinned to the bottom, and this is pinned to the top. So no worries there. But now if we resize it, you can see that, okay, the text is now flexible. That's quite cool. But you can see that our 3D assets move, I don't know if this is the optimal movement for us. And the way for us to make this movement better is just to change the pinning. So maybe let's say that this is going to be, first of all, pinned a bit lower. Can change it. Maybe it's closer to the edge here. Let's say 96. Let's put it down like that. Let's see how that works. Let's see, minus 96. Again, I'm using the 4 points. Grid, system, minus 32. Let's check again. But when we go above a certain size, like this car goes outside here, that's not super good. So maybe we have to give it a bit more padding from the top. Sorry, distance from the top. And you can play around with this, like to try and find something that looks good. When you do this, the most important thing, of course, is that it sticks, like that it looks good from 960 pixels, which is going to be our first breakpoint actually, and up to like our max width. And with that said, we haven't really set a max width yet. You can see this text just goes into infinity right now. I think we want to make sure that this doesn't go beyond a specific width, which is going to make our assets be more predictable. And it's also just going to make our life easier overall because the layout is going to look better on bigger screens. So let's go to width here, to size. And let's add a max width to the wrapper. So not to the hero, because the hero can span however far it wants, or however wide it wants. But the wrapper is going to be fixed to a specific max width. And here we can play around with stuff. So let's say 200 pixels, sorry, 1200 pixels. And maybe we increase the size so we can see. So now you can see that it stops at that breakpoint. And all of a sudden, the size or the pinning of these items needs to be changed again because it stops growing at a point. And then we don't need to like worry about these bigger sizes. Now we need to worry about anything from like 1200 and down here instead. So 1200, I think that's the same that I was using here. Let's see. Oh, look at me. I even used the max width on the hero section. And in this case, it doesn't really matter because we don't have any content that that is going to be impacted by this. In some cases, you might not want to do it, but in this case, it works. Let's see if we find a different case later down the line where we might want to set the max width on a different container. But in this case, it's no worries. So we could actually, just to make it exactly the same, let's remove it from here and let's put it here instead. So 1200 pixels. And that looks good. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, I think this is starting to look quite nice. And here will be later when we make this responsive, here will be the breakpoint. You can see how the text changes. And that's because the styles have been set to be responsive. So that's done. Let's see, does it behave similar to this? Yep, it's just that the pinnings, let's make this 960 again. It's just that the pins are of these items here are a bit different, and maybe the size, yeah, they are a bit smaller. So let's go down to 240 again. 240. I got a bit cocky with the sizing there. Let's see, how does it look? Boom. That looks good. And again, you can play around with this forever if you want to like find your perfect sizing for everything, the perfect pinning. But I think this is good for now. Time for the final step, making this beauty look beautiful on every device. Responsiveness is a thing that a lot of people struggle with. And in this part of the mini course, we're gonna dive deep into it. First though, let's start with a little change to the structure that we just created. Because what I realized is if we set the height here to 100 VH and then we just call it a day, it's gonna be fine in cases where we have like a screen that isn't super wide and maybe pretty short. Like in this case, you can see how things just get caught off. This isn't looking super good. So to fix that, we're going to take the hero here instead and say that the height is actually going to be fit. So it's always going to fit the content so it doesn't get cut off. Now, if I scroll here, you can see nothing is cut off. That's good. That's a good start. And also we might want to add some bottom padding, like, I don't know, 64 maybe. If we play or check the prototype, this looks a bit better. So we added our paddings. We changed the height of the section to be fit, but that's not all. I actually want the height to have, or to be a min height. I want it to have a min height as well. That is the way you say it in English. Sometimes I just lose my English, I feel. Min height should be set to 100 VH. So a minimum of 100 in viewport height. Because otherwise, if someone has a really big screen and this section here, let's actually remove it just to exemplify. Let's take this and publish it. Update. There we go. And here is our website. And let's see. So in this case, it's fine. But what if I zoom out here? And let's say we have a really big screen. Then if you have a really big screen, you can see how now we're going to see more stuff on the page. Like this, I want this to be the only thing anyone sees when they go into the page. I don't want this stuff to be seen regardless of what screen size you have or what device size you have. To fix that, we can use the min height of 100 VH. Sorry, min height, not min width. Min height of 100 VH. And now, if I publish and update, this should work. So I not inspect, but I zoom out. Senor, 100 VH. Okay, sorry, it doesn't work like that. I will have to change to viewport here. And now it's 100 VH. So if I update, this should work. So now if I zoom out, you can see that it's always taking up 100 VH, whatever size we have. So that's good. Now it's going to work in the way we want. This section here is always going to be at least 100 in viewport height. So that's another thing we had to fix. The third thing is that I've been using max width 960 for the whole website. And I thought that let's use that here too. So I'm going to change the max width to 960 pixels. So if we publish and update and check it out here, we can see that now the text fits in here as well for this device size. And as you can see, what I'm doing here as well is that I'm not checking just in here, in this mode here. I'm actually checking how it looks when I am on the website itself. I think that's a pretty good best practice for you to have when you check how your sections actually look or how your websites actually look in the wild. Use the publish feature and update and go into your website whenever you make changes to make sure that it looks good in the browser. Now, with those tweaks out of the way, we can start actually going into the breakpoints themselves. So let's go to our little plus sign here and hit tablet. And I mean, right from the get-go, we get a pretty nice structure because we were responsible with our stacks and we've been setting up a pretty good structure for the whole website. But there are still some tweaks that we need to do to this website. For example, I'm just going to take this navbar here and hide those links for the sake of OCD. I just want to get rid of that. Maybe decrease the height of this as well, which we do here. 96 could be a good one. And again, this navbar is going to become a component later on. So I'm not going to create the actual responsive versions of this navbar right now. We're going to do that later in the components segment of the course. But for the visuals, I want to just do some tweaks. So what else do we have? We have these images. Probably we want to change the size of these images as we go down in device width. So maybe 184. This car, maybe I want it to be a bit closer to the edge here. Maybe all the way here. And maybe a bit more down because we still want to be able to see what the text says. Same with this bike here. Maybe change the position to more of a center position. And as we change it to the center, look here now. If we start changing the size, you can see that this one, oops, that was not what I wanted to do. Sorry about that. This one is pinned to the right. As you can see here, it's pinned to the right. This one is pinned to the left and the top. So when we decrease or increase the width, these look good. They are pinned like they should. Actually, this one, we might even want to remove the pin to the top. So when we resize, that looks quite good. But the bike is kind of biking around here, which, I mean, it kind of looks cool as we change the size here. It's literally biking, but I don't want that as the user is decreasing the size of their browser. So what we can do, what I just did with this one, remove the pin in the top, we can do the same with this one, but I'm going to remove this left pin. So it's just going to stay in the center instead. So now that we change sizes, it's staying in the center. So that's a pretty good thing to keep with you. Okay, we have the sizes here. They look good, the image sizes. And another thing, I mean, this button, as well as every other button on this whole website, is going to be a component. So we're going to componentize all of these things. The nav is going to be a component because we're going to reuse it. The button here is going to become a component. This is going to become a component. But for the sake of visuals, again, and just to touch on this concept that I've talked about before, that we scale down for every device with, I just want to quickly show how I would do that. So probably for this button, when we create a component out of it, I will scale it down in height. So let's say 72. I would probably decrease the padding to the left and the right so that it becomes a bit tidier. Even the radius, I would probably change. So 16 here maybe. And all of a sudden, I think it looks better. It looks more in line with this device width. So I really think this is it for the tablet. Quick changes. Then we're going to add a phone one as well. So plus phone. And for the phone, we can see that, again, these things here are a bit too big. So I am going to take all of these and not remove them, but reduce the size of them. And maybe 120 might be a bit too big. Let's say 112. And maybe this will be a bit further up like that. And this one, maybe, yeah, -40 might work. -40 here too. Let's see how it looks as we scale it towards 560. I mean, at this size, they look very small, even a bit too small at this size. And what we could do, if we really wanted to be super specific about like in-between sizes, is that we could add another custom size here. So let's name this like tablet, or what do we name this? Tablet mini. And let's say that the size is 559. Let's see, tablet mini, or let's say that this size is going to be down to like wherever we want the cut off to be here. So when do we want it to become this smaller mobile size? Maybe it's at 487, maybe it's something else. But the lesson I want to give you here is that you could create an in-between state like this and do even more tweaks. Now, in most cases, I don't think this is necessary. I think it just adds a bunch of headache. So we're not going to do that. But we might just increase the size of these images to like 128 maybe. Let's see how it looks. Maybe it becomes too big at this small size. No, I mean, this could work, I guess. It does block a bit too much of the text, so maybe 120 is the best we have, and maybe we move it closer to the edge and a bit more up. So it goes outside of the screen. This bike, where do we put the bike? Where do we put the bike? Maybe here, so we can still see that it says assets. I think that's good enough. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Back to 320. Now, another thing that could happen here is if this text here is set to fit, for example, or fixed, so it has a fixed value. As we go down in size, in tablet, it's fine. But as we come to the mobile size, you can see that all of a sudden this is breaking out of everything. And as we add more text, it's just going to add more breakage to the whole deal. So to fix that, what I will usually do is I will go to the master, so the desktop frame, and change the width to fill. And in many cases, your text styles will be left aligned by default, so you would have to center align it. And then you get this. So all of a sudden it works, which is nice because now it works just according to the paddings for every device here. So you can see as we scale, works well. Awesome. And yeah, that's another little lesson there with the text sizes. Now let's add or decrease the button size here again. So maybe 64 and maybe 32 left and right. And that looks pretty good. And 12 in radius, cannot forget that. So we have our little increments. What is missing? I think the paddings. So since we're using 16, which is already a pretty low number for the hero, I don't think we necessarily have to reduce this for the for the tablet, but maybe for the phone. Now, if we would use something bigger like 64 here for the desktop, let's say it was 64 here and 64 here, then maybe for the tablet, I would go down to at least 32. And then for the mobile, maybe like we would have 12. But now, since we're doing 16 here, let's go back. We're doing 16 here. I think for tablet, we can stay the same. But for mobile, I usually like to use something like 12 so that we utilize as much as possible of the screen. So let's go in here to the nav as well and change from 16 to, not to, 12. So something like this. And there we go. Again, if you want to become a truly dangerous framer pro and also gain access to the rest of the 20 plus hours of content that this course offers, then check the link down below. Anyways, enough with the salesman. We'll talk later, another time, another video. Have a great life. Talk soon. Ciao.